many dynamic moving parts here in Iceland. This is a nation that is currently just being born. Earth is actively moving, actively being created. I'm Jessica. I'm a geologist. My background actually is in sedimentary geology, the deposition of sediments. So that includes rivers, subaqueous sediments, beaches, things like that. I do science communication, and that means managing social media. That includes the Iceland Geology Facebook group, which has over 165,000 people in it now. And I also work with media agencies around the world to provide them English language, up-to-date geological information on what is happening here in Iceland. We're standing here now at not just the confluence of several rivers, but the confluence of several places where this water actually is, I don't want to say being born, but sort of coming into existence. We have rain clouds, waterfalls, which are sort of the start of the spring rivers, and even this glacier, this dark area of ice coming out of the mountains is the glacier. All three of those things play a key part in what creates the rivers here in Iceland. We're actually here in sort of the southwest Highlands, close to Thorsmark, and the rivers that you're going to see here are primarily going to be glacier-fed, which is what we're seeing here, this beautiful braided stream that's coming straight from glacial melt. But you're also going to see small springs that are coming straight from the rock itself. The rock that comes from volcanoes is incredibly permeable and has lots of porosity. That means it has lots of little interconnected holes in this basalt as it's being born, which allows for water to percolate through it. And that is an excellent way that water sort of comes out of a cliffside and forms a stream right there in front of you. You see that a lot here. And the water that you get from both of these sources is actually quite different. The spring-fed water is going to be quite clear. It usually is a little bit warmer, dependent on temperature. And then this glacier water is filled with what's called rock flour or glacier flour, which is this ground up sediment. As the glacier is moving, it's grinding up the bedrock. And you're actually getting this sort of very fine powder filled with silica minerals. And you're gonna actually see that it creates this cloudiness to the water. What's really exciting is that you get these sort of darker channels like that parallel these blue channels, and that would actually be the spring water moving alongside the glacial water, and it just has different temperatures, different densities. And so in one riverbed, you can actually have what is basically two rivers side by side moving along out towards the ocean. You can have two types of sort of glacially produced rivers. Normal, sort of everyday glacier rivers. This is just like glacier water is melting and you form a river. You get a lot more melt, of course, that happens in the summer. And so you'll see sort of water levels rise with these everyday rivers. But because this is a volcanic island, you get a lot of heat produced, especially around the volcanoes. These volcanoes are mountains, and a lot of these mountains have glaciers around them. So what you have is a volcano sitting underneath a glacier, and when it's ready to erupt, all of this heat and magma starts bubbling up, and it starts melting the glacier. You get what's called a jökulhlaup. And a jökulhlaup is directly translated in Icelandic as like glacier run or a glacier flood. And these happen at the time of eruptions. They can be incredibly powerful. They can be incredibly fast moving. And they produce some of the most widespread floods that you'll see, just this wall of water rushing out towards you. You have these jökulhlaups at the time of their production, of them coming to life, are probably some of the biggest rivers in the world in terms of water volume that's rushing. When the 1918 jökulhlaup happened at the Katla eruption, we're talking 400,000 to potentially, there's prediction of up to 1 million cubic meters per second of water rushing out from this glacier. That is the biggest river in the world at that moment. The power that these glacial floods produce is so wild and fascinating. And I think it's one of the things that makes volcanic safety and risk analysis here in Iceland unique, is that you have to predict not only when is the volcano going to erupt, but where will these floods be? How are we going to protect the roads and the bridges and the people in the cars? If you can imagine, this entire valley could actually be flooded with water during one of these jökulhlaups. One of the interesting things here is that when you talk about like water pureness, water cleanliness, Iceland has some of the most pure, clean water, best water from a tap by far. And that is thanks to this sort of very regenerative, very dynamic ecosystem that we have here, very young ecosystem. Even though we have all this snow, when you think of like all these glaciers, it's actually a desert. This is a very dry place overall. And to have this glacier melt, to have these rivers, is one of the lifeblood ways that Icelanders, like early settlers, were able to make a life here. You have the heat, these sort of, exciting geothermal areas that really create much more renewable energy, and as well as so much water that's coming from these glaciers, that's coming from the rock. Thanks to the rivers and thanks to the preservation here, thanks to that sort of stewardship mindset that I think many Icelanders have, we've been lucky to preserve the water here and to have such clean, viable drinking water. And you see people, actually just face first straight into a stream. The water allows farming. It has the geothermal aspect, so that water that's underground coming up. Water is such a unique life force here. All of the rocks that you see in here are these big pebbles that have been brought down from the mountains. And so you see these sort of, yellow sulfur-rich rocks, green rocks that are probably with some olivine in them even, meaning that they're made from some of the most primordial stuff on Earth. The river is the great equalizer. The river brings everything together. I love being here in Iceland because you're at the beginning of the life cycle. You're seeing things in their most raw forms, the lava coming out, forming new earth, seeing where ground that you'll never see again because it's going to be covered in earth. there's an energy you feel here about how like dynamic and young everything is, and how ever-changing it is, and how this island will not look like how it looks now. The processes that are acting upon this island are always shaping it, are always at work. I think when you think about it, the volcano, there's something about that, lava that's to be feared and respected, but this water, that's what keeps us all alive every day.